Let's talk about something that's going to anger some folks. Star Wars has always been for kids. Its foundations are entertainment, mythos retold, and children's hope. That's it. Nothing more. It's one of the main reasons why the current generation of entertainment arbiters tend to fall out of love with Star Wars as time progresses. That's right, I'm talking about us.
What are we all talking about?
Ewoks.
Ugh, I hate the Ewoks. The only good thing about Ewoks in that movie, you got to see some of them die.
Now, I'm a little older than my audience tends to be, according to analytics, and I remember when the prequel trilogy came out. Star Wars nerd like me loved it from the beginning, but it was poorly received by the massive amount of Gen Xers and older millennials that showed up in droves to watch it. It was too child-friendly for their liking, and they all wanted a darker and more serious tone of storytelling. I admit that I was a bit baffled at the response because I loved the movies. And still do. Then a little more than a decade later, all those younger millennials and Gen Zers that grew up watching the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars were now the ones begging for more adult-themed Star Wars shows, even though that isn't what they grew up with. I heard the complaints about Rebels and The Mandalorian being too childish, and in some cases, not Star Wars at all. Now, if we're talking about the sequel trilogy, Solo, or Obi-Wan, then I can get on board completely. The hero's journey is a well-defined cyclical journey that George Lucas never deviated from, and these movies and shows just don't seem to get that at all. But Rebels and The Mandalorian seem to understand that well, despite their problems. Now, there are plenty of fans calling Andor what the fans have always wanted, and I have to say that while I like the show, it is missing foundational pieces that make Star Wars what it is. Andor is very morally ambiguous, which Star Wars is not, and Andor has alluded sex in it, which Star Wars does not. This show is a much darker tone, and I think a lot of parents would have some qualms with this show if it went too much more down the rabbit hole. Star Wars Game of Thrones might sound awesome in theory, but Game of Thrones exists in a world of nihilism, despite all of the different religions, not faith and selfless heroism like Star Wars. Both writers of both series have explained their foundations for storytelling, and it's one of the reasons why one is more adult-themed and the other isn't. Objective and faith-based truth are always the foundations for mythos, and sometimes that's hard to hear for people that enjoy more adult-leaning content. I guess my point is I understand an aging generation wanting their favorite property to mature with them, but that isn't what Star Wars is. Bad decisions, selfish motives, and morally ambiguous behaviors are always considered paths to the dark side in George Lucas' Star Wars because mythos isn't morally ambiguous, but an archetype for life. I think the reasons people were mad at Ewoks in 1983 and Jar Jar in 1999 are the same reasons people are mad at Rebels in 2014 and The Mandalorian in 2023. It's just a different generation each time. What I find funny is that each generation did the same thing without recognizing it.
Because new is always better.
So those new Star Wars movies, those are better than the old ones?
Yeah, the first three barely mention the intricacies of intergalactic trade law.
You see, there is a difference between bad content and good kid-friendly content because we all once enjoyed the latter. The further that we deconstruct Star Wars' purpose, whether that's entertainment, mythos and the hero's journey, or a hopeful story for kids, the more we are making non-Star Wars content. Anyway, that's my extra thought this week. I hope I earned your subscription. Tell me what you think in the comments. Do you want more mature Star Wars? This week's response to my videos were amazing and I couldn't be more grateful. A shout out to Lundog this week as his comments have been not only insightful, but added nuance to the discussion in the comments section. As a fan of nuanced discussion, I dig polite comments like this. Thanks for watching. See you next time.